Use the microphone. We do have wipes that will be there momentarily if you would like to wipe off the microphone before, between speakers, okay? First order of business is revising the agenda. We have need of an executive session tonight to discuss a legal matter, and we do plan to come out of the executive session, thank you, and take action. So could I have a motion to add executive session to our agenda?
So move.
Second. Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? All right, great. All right. So we'll begin as we always do with the vision statement to help us know where we're headed. So Jean, I'll turn to you for that.
Sure. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next up is the consent agenda. We have the minutes of June 23rd and June 28th, and also the warrants. If you have any questions on the warrants for Stu Hurd or any corrections that you've not gotten to Nancy Lively or any questions, please, let's do that right after we do, let's do that. For the purposes of discussion, though, can we have a motion? Yes?
Let them make their motion, and I just want to mention something.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll move to adopt.
okay. A second?
Second?
Thank you. All right, and you have a question?
Yeah, I think we ought to continue with the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of every meeting as we've done in the past.
Well, if we can get through the consent agenda, then we can
Okay,
talk about it later, okay? All right, any questions on the consent agenda? Yes.
I just asked Nancy, and she wasn't sure, so we're gonna need to put our heads together on my question, which is June 23rd minutes, page 2, line 58. Stu, you'll probably remember this better than anyone. I don't remember Mr. Gates saying they always use slip line when there's a water main break.
No, actually, slip lining is relatively rare, so it would not, if it says always, we don't always use slip line.
Okay, so maybe it could say, we sometimes use slip line pipe in our repairs.
Or even rarely.
Rarely? Okay.
Yes, because you can't have an outflow when you're using that. There can't be any outflow anywhere, because otherwise you can't run a slip line. So the only place he was talking about using it was on the...
They were talking about using it off of Burgess Road.
Yes.
The line that comes into the main system, they would be able to shut it down above, slip line the line, because it's that old cast iron piping that we've had so much trouble with.
So maybe we could just say we are using slip line pipe on Burgess Road in our repairs, if that's the case.
Whatever you wish.
Okay, thank you. I just thought that was important to
Yes.
get right.
All right, any other questions?
I had one question.
Yes.
In the check warrant report, Stu, there was a gap between check number 87 and 96. Could you tell us?
Yes, what your warrants contain this evening, I believe, is the first one or two warrants from FY22, numbers warrants 1 and 2, and then warrant number 25 from FY21. There'll be probably a second warrant coming on July 26th, which will be expenses that were made in FY21 that must be accounted for in FY21. So we generally end up with 25, 26, sometimes depending on where the year falls, 27 warrants in a given year. So you'll see a difference again next week or at the next meeting.
Thank you. That was helpful. All right, any other comments or questions? If not, I'll call a vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? All right, wonderful. All right, we're moving on to public comment, and I see we have one person signed up for public comment tonight. This is Linda Donegan. Hi.
Hi.
And you are here from the Bennington Free Library, and you've given us gifts, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm one of the youth services librarians at Bennington Free Library, and Carrie Goodbeer is the other youth services librarian, and Diane Howard is one of our assistants in the children's room. So they came along for moral support. And also because we really believe in our mission, and this summer is a particularly wonderful place to be in the library. Today is a banner day because today's the day that our library opened fully. We've been open since May. But our hours have been reduced. We've been open 6 days, but today we are open 6 days and 37 summer hours. So it's very exciting for us, and it has been an astounding experience to welcome people through the door. Not only are the little ones excited to be there, but our stalwart patrons of all ages have expressed great joy in seeing us. Wow, we're just librarians, but they want to choose their books. They want to see their peeps. They just want to come in and use the computers and make their own choices. We're continuing with outreach and continuing with takeout, which has been gangbusters all the while. The library physically has been closed, but for some people it really worked. So we are continuing with our takeout program. I'm here to talk about summer reading because that's what we do in the summer. And we start planning in the winter. This year we had to stay flexible, and we were able to really fulfill our mission. We reached 1,600 children who took home summer reading packets, and the select board members have a sample of what was in those packets so that kids could take them home, keep track of their reading, and earn free books. And the bonus is that they can come into the library and choose those free books. So that's kind of a double bonus: read and learn and visit the library. We also have a very, very large outreach program to child care centers. So 200 more reading records went to child care centers. And also, some people are anxious about coming in to the library but want to participate in summer reading. So if anybody requests summer reading packets, we send them to their homes so they can participate remotely. One of the wonderful things about opening the library is that we're open for in-person programming. And if you checked out the banner today, that was an in-person Yoga Kids class that we had last week. And the very talented Caroline from the banner took those photos. So it's online, and you'll see the fun, you'll see the joy. And we were especially happy to see kids at the library. Wednesday is our first story hour, and it's the first story hour since the pandemic started. So those little toddlers are now preschoolers, and our preschoolers who came to story hour are ready to start kindergarten. So lots of change happens in a child's life in 18 months, and we're privileged to see it. but there's been a gap. So we can't wait to see kids at story time and to welcome them physically into the library. We had hoped to use the outdoor space, but with all the rain, that's not going to happen. We also have lots of things for school-age kids, and we were invited to participate in the Out of the Box program. We were contacted by Kimberly Griffith from UVM 4-H Extension, and so she included us in the program. 45 activity boxes go out every 2 weeks, and box 1 was distributed in about 2.5 days. So there is a real demand from grandparents, from families, from children for what they can take home and what they can actually do at the library. We're continuing June, July, and then August to have programming all week, not necessarily every day, but we're trying to offer things that children and families can participate in, one or two things every week. We're also involved in a lot of collaborative work with other organizations in the area. And one of the long-time collaborations that we've done is with the Bennington Museum. And we developed Museum ABCs about 11 years ago, and it continues to grow. And this summer, we got a big grant from the A.D. Henderson Foundation to really expand it. So the library has a piece in that, a big piece in that. And we're thrilled that it's growing. But it also shows the commitment that other organizations have to us and we have to them. And the library just doesn't exist in our building. We go out, we bring language, literacy, books, and learning to kids wherever they are. So we're going to end on a very fun note. We're going to have 9 holes of mini golf in the library at the end of August. And hopefully kids will have read during the summer and will bring that joy of reading and learning to schools when they return in the fall. So,
That's wonderful, Linda. That's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
And
Thank
yes,
you.
And so, Terry, your first, is it your first story hour next week?
No, the day after tomorrow.
The day of tomorrow. Oh, this week, this Thursday. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
It's
That's wonderful.
our first one since we closed.
Yeah.
So they have to do more online.
Yes,
for the
I've
Yeah.
been doing them online the
Yeah.
last year and a half.
Right.
Yes, that's true.
So that's, yeah, it's great to hear the update. We're happy that Tom is your liaison and that he'll, be hearing firsthand what's going on. And I happened to be in the library today for a short period of time, and the number of people who came in and behind, the desk, people were saying hello, and, everyone was just so happy to be back. Yeah, it was, yeah.
that's how
It
we
was
feel,
lovely.
too.
Yeah. So thank you. Questions from the board?
I just want to say something. Seeing this, Ann Hunter, one of my kids brought home Possum Moon. I don't even know which kid, but oh my goodness, that was like, I remember that book vividly, and I'm going to have to go dig it out from the bucket that I have at home of books. I know I saved this one, so anyway, it's great to see that little possum.
Well, that's actually a fox.
Oh. Oh. So sorry. Where's their Oh, here, possum and peeper, on there, in there. There is a possum on
There's
there.
a possum in there, but it's from one of Anne's new books called Where's Baby? And one of the pluses of the pandemic was to do these remote story hours. And so for one of them, Carrie and I were able to do a Zoom with Ann Hunter in her studio. And wow, it was fabulous. So she showed us work in progress and original artwork, and she's really a special person in our lives in many, many ways. We're so lucky to have her in our greater community. She's so talented and wonderful. So
That's great. Well, thank you, and we
You're
hope that
welcome.
you will come regularly, and that other members of the library will come, staff members will come also and update us, and that's, yeah, we really appreciate it. It's wonderful.
Okay.
And it's great for the community to
well,
hear.
thank you for inviting us, and thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it immensely. So come to the library.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that was a lovely way to begin the evening. Excellent. All right, and we'll move on to something equally lovely, right? So tonight we have with us individuals from the board members from the Better Bennington Corporation, and they are here to talk to us about their work plans and their budget. And at the end of the presentation, we will be asked to approve their budget, as that determines the Downtown Improvement District tax for this coming year, the DID tax, okay? All right, so Susan Plaisance, President of the board. Hello.
And I couldn't do it without the rest of the board members, including this guy, who I'm going to turn it over to in just a second.
Be careful what you wish for.
I know, you're right.
Okay, stage is all yours.
Well, thanks for inviting us. It's been one heck of a year, and we're going to give you a little retrospective here on last year and what is going to be coming this year. Lots of new things happening at the BBC, but in order to tell the story, I'm going to turn it over to the best storyteller I know, Michael King.
There we go.
Glad I wasn't any closer to the microphone than that. Good evening, everybody, and good to see you all again. It's actually nice to be in a physical location that isn't my room upstairs in front of a computer. I just want to take a note from Linda's presentation when she talked about the pluses of the pandemic. One of the things that we want to talk about towards the end of this brief presentation, and I promise you this is not going to be death by PowerPoint, is that the pandemic has given us the opportunity and time also to begin to think of the future. We'll talk about that as we go through here. So Shannon's kindly agreed to turn slide pages for me. I think most of you know what the mission of the Better Bennington Corporation is. I don't intend to read these things. We all grew up reading, but that is our mission. If you turn to the next slide, our table of contents is very brief. It's the pandemic story. We know we've all experienced basically a 9/11 that's lasted for 15 or 16 months, and we're all trying to come back from it. Our own response is what we've titled this sort of mini presentation. Try to help ourselves, our community, our businesses stabilize themselves. Think of patients being stabilized, helping them survive during this, and then looking to the future, helping them and others grow. We'll talk about that briefly. We're giving you a brief overview of the three major committees: design, economic vitality, and promotion. And if you look at this symbol down at the bottom of the second slide, you'll see that we give brief explanations of what those three committees are. And I'm going to hold off on the organization committee for probably the last page or two of the presentation. But design, economic vitality, and promotion, We'll talk a little bit about looking ahead to 2021 and 22, some challenges and solutions, and there are attachments, I believe, to your package. If you have any questions on those committee activities, our committee chairs are here. Susan chairs promotions, Eric chairs economic vitality, and Mike chairs design. Does that make sense so far? Good. Well, congratulations, Michael. You made sense. Good. Let's move ahead. Thank you. We, not only the BBC, but business owners, pardon me, and the community responded to this pandemic, this crisis, in very different ways. It gave us a lot of challenges. I'm sorry again. A lot of challenges in the crisis and a lot of challenges we never saw before. And my only parallel in my lifetime is 9/11. We've never seen a 9/11 before. We've never seen anything like this in our lifetimes. And our own goal in that was to try to help everyone get through the crisis, businesses and local businesses. We tried to do everything possible to make sure that downtown could come out of this as whole as possible on the other end. And I think if we look around town now, new businesses, new ventures, new initiatives, it looks as though we're coming through this fairly whole, in part thanks to the BBC, in part thanks to so many people, in part thanks to pure blind luck. Parenthetically, the opening the other night of the W Collective was, to me, tremendous evidence of a lot of optimism, a lot of willingness to take risk and start something new. It couldn't have a better way to move through the last part of the pandemic. So to our end, through John Shanahan especially, and John is not here tonight. John has had a hell of a long, hard year. He's taken a break. To that end, John focused on constant communication with businesses, a lot of personal interactions, a lot of personal referrals and personal work side by side, and providing updates on information that he would get from the state or the federal government and get with local sources and make sure businesses had that. We did that extremely well. And I think we're happy with the end result of that, as happy as we can be. Let's go to the next page. Very briefly, we have a great design committee under the chairmanship of Mike McDonough. You can see the names of the key committee members there. We've divided this into some accomplishments and some challenges. You can read all of those by yourselves. I don't need to read them for you. But if you have questions on some of those accomplishments, Mike is here and happy to answer those questions for you. Specifically, what I find interesting is the Energizer Redevelopment Steering Committee, especially then the easterly expansion of the downtown district, with the thought of including the old high school in that so that it can go through some real good renovations. Those, to me, are the high points. Let's shoot for the next slide. I'm going to keep going unless you interrupt me with a question or wave your hand or say, Michael, shut up, whatever you want to do. Okay? Design committee, again, accomplishments, a number of them. The challenges, even through the whole year and still, are COVID-related. Competitive grant funding, procurement of matching funds, even identifying downtown targets that will, we hope, receive state recovery funds. We know that Vermont is in a tremendously advantageous and positive position with more money coming into the state than it probably has seen in decades because of the end of the pandemic or the pending end of the pandemic. That's going to be an advantage to everybody. Can't wait to get that money coming in. Mike, do you have any comments on this as we go through the design committee?
Question?
You can go.
No, that's fine.
I'm not aware of what the Putnam Plaza is. Is it behind? Okay,
That is what it has been referred to.
okay,
Is the green space behind the former hotel.
which is beautiful.
Good, thank you. So let's move one slide along. This is just basically pictures of some of the live things that are happening even during the pandemic. I mean, the Pocket Park has been here a while. Right now, it looks splendid. The splash pad is up and the stage is up. Things are looking, to my mind, pretty good in downtown Bennington. Well, we don't need to talk more about a picture. Economic vitality, of which Eric is the chair, has been trying to make good strides. It's a tough time to make economic strides of any kind, but we understand that downtown is coming out of COVID in a better state. I just look at 421 Main Street, I look at the Farm Road Brewery, I look at the distilleries that are opening, I look at, again, the W Collective and other places that are opening. For me, the interesting thing, yes, it's interesting that they're opening. What's interesting is also the youthfulness in them and the willingness of young people to come here and take risks. That's more positive than anything you could say about anything else, okay? So, and again, I will repeat that Bennington, the Better Bennington Corporation, especially through John, redirected all of its efforts to support members through this time and to be a source of tremendous information. Next slide, please. These are some of the economic vitality accomplishments and challenges. Just disseminating the COVID information. This best practices handbook, I would take this to any client, and I deal with a lot of big clients. When you can come to somebody and show them a best practices handbook for dealing with, for example, a pandemic, for dealing with government agencies, then you're adding value to an organization, to a business. I like this one personally. And even such signs as these, reminding people of what you have to do during the pandemic when you come into somebody's shop. What I think of the challenges that is most significant is that public response to openings, public response to businesses, public response to a relaxation of the tensions and of the regulations is still tentative. I'm not sure people know exactly where to go and what to do. That's my own point of view, but I spend a lot of time not only in this area, but other parts of the state and in the region, and I see a lot of tentativeness, and I don't think we are any different. Questions, comments? Again, I think these things are great productions that the BBC has provided to people in town, helping them to navigate their way through parts of the pandemic, trying to provide some emotional support, business support, ideas and suggestions. Movie night, block party, the splash pad, the stage. Great things that are happening downtown. It's taken a while to happen and didn't happen without a bit of struggle. Thank goodness they are in place. Promotion committee. Susan Pleasance, who is our president, chairs the promotion committee. And sometimes it could be the commotion committee, but frankly, right now, this year has been hard to promote things when people didn't know, A, where they were going to be, when they didn't know, B, where the money was going to come from, when they didn't know, C, where the energy was going to come from, where they didn't know, D, whether state or local regulations would preclude their having promotional activities outside, which is why, for example, the Safe and Sound Santa occurred through the promotion committee, where the Downtown Visitor Center opened up for the entire year to help people, students, business owners, residents, and visitors. And there was a lot of juggling, if you will, of non-physical activity events to make sure, A, people were distanced appropriately from each other, to make sure people were masked when they had to be, and to make sure that things happened smoothly. Susan, any questions or any comments you have about that?
Not unless any-
Yeah,
It was
questions
a
or comments?
challenge without, loss of events. We had to think of something, and specifically the Safe Santa, I think.
Yeah.
was, if anybody came out to that event, it kind of almost reminded me of a Hallmark movie. People were bustling around downtown with local shopping bags. It was snowing a little, and Santa was in the window, and the kids all had a great time. But it was a challenge, but here we are,
Yeah.
coming out the other end, and hopefully next year Mayfest will be back on.
Yeah, so when we say, or when we maintain, it looks like we're coming better out of the end of this than we thought we would. What is your response to that? I'd like to hear from select board members about that.
A response to what in particular? Just,
I think in terms of businesses, in terms of the local economy, in terms of new businesses, interest in businesses in this town.
I think I think almost all of us were out on the street on, whatever, was it Friday night?
Yeah, Friday night.
Yeah, when Old Castle or it's not called Old Castle, when the theater had an opening night, when the restaurants and bars were full.
Yeah.
There was an opening at W Collective. There were amazing number of feet on the street, and that really felt great. I think we've talked about the splash pad, which is going to be a problem in the turn lane while you watch kids playing in the splash pad on North Street. I think we've been very excited to see sort of Bennington coming back. And, in addition to the businesses that you talked about, I always forget the name. It's not Fuel Up.
It is Fuel Up
Fuel Up?
Nutrition. Fuel Up
Yeah,
Nutrition.
so, the number of businesses that have opened in downtown during and right after the pandemic has been
It's
impressive.
I was talking to a neighbor last night who, in his job, travels around to several New England towns. And he said, I hope people realize how extraordinarily well Bennington has gotten through the pandemic. And we have places opening. And I must say, a lot of the businesses downtown that are still there have John Shanahan to thank for that. He helped them tremendously with getting through the bureaucracy of state and federal monies to keep them going. A lot of people kept their jobs because of the work that he did. And we think Bennington is poised for some real growth, because we've even had growth in a sense during the pandemic, which is almost unheard of throughout not just the United States, but the world.
I'd like to add a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
We, the Select Board, and the BBC, we've all been working together for a long time.
Yeah,
This did not happen overnight,
of course it does.
and this was not a result of COVID-19. This was because of hard work on your part and disciplined work of the Select Board. And I don't want to forget Shannon Barsati
Yeah.
and all the work that she's done in her short tenure. So I think it's important to remember that we all did this together.
Absolutely. But it's pulsing. There was a pulse
Yeah.
in town.
Yeah, Bruce?
Yes.
I just wanted to make one comment, and that was over the last 2 or 3 days when we've been downtown, Friday night, Saturday, and yes, yesterday afternoon as well. One of the things that I noticed and my wife noticed was the demographic of the people who were there. And I was really pleased to see lots and lots of people who are a whole lot younger than I am. Not that there aren't lots of those people, but we don't see them down. I've sat downtown for 3 or 4 hours for other events, and this was really quite remarkable. So I am hopeful. I am very hopeful, and I'm looking forward to other things opening. The one business we haven't talked about is the pet store, which we went into yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great to have that down in town now. I'm just thrilled.
There's
And
a couple more stores that hadn't been mentioned that are brand new opened. Knickknacks, which is on Main Street.
Yep.
Which is on the second floor. You have to look up. We tend not to look up. There's the Hair Cafe, which is up where Mexican Connection used to be.
Right.
That just opened up, so it's super exciting. I can't think of
It
any.
is very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bruce, I'm so glad you mentioned all that. Number one, like you, I used to be younger. I'm going to be younger today than I am tomorrow. But what I saw in the faces I saw, not only were they young faces, there were so many I did not know, totally new people. And I was tremendously excited. Well, so that's where it goes.
Jean, you had a question?
Yeah, I think one of the upsides of the pandemic is I think all of us, having lived through what we lived through, appreciate what we have more than we ever did and maybe even realized what we had. I think it unfortunately took a pandemic to make us see that. I'm wondering if there could be some sort of a reopening celebration, kind of like I had to adjust.
We're planning that.
Oh, great, because I had to adjust my shopping, and I didn't support nearly to the level I usually do at holiday time. So I plan on doing that now, and of course, we'll do it when the holidays roll around. But we need to get out and have, like, we made it, and shop local, you know, sort of a similar push like we do around holiday time now.
just
The Vitality Committee is putting that together.
Fantastic. And if you need help, I'm not just out there, you know, telling you what to do. I'm willing to help, so.
And don't forget, Midnight Madness is still happening this year on Thursday.
Midnight Madness.
Midnight
There's
Madness
that.
this Thursday.
And Garlic Town.
And Garlic Town.
And Garlic Town.
The submarine is coming to the surface.
Yes.
It's going to open all the portholes. Absolutely, yeah.
Any other questions, or shall they proceed?
say Midnight Madness was this Thursday?
It's this Thursday.
Yeah.
Mhm. And there are very many stores participating.
So we talked about stabilizing and surviving. Now we want to talk a little bit about growing. Because our goal for 21 and 22, really, we need to identify some ways to make up for the 2 Mayfest revenues that we have lost. So we lost about 60 grand that way. We want to find ways to make that up and find ways to help other businesses in town make up what they have lost. So what's in our pipeline, and we've divided that by the 3 key committees for design, for economic vitality, and promotions. And as Eric just mentioned, we're preparing some grand opening and reopening events that should happen within the next month. So that's where we're trying to focus our energies on the future this coming year. So we ask, how does that benefit Bennington? Well, we're counting on the fact that it will increase external awareness of this community, but also that it will increase our own community's awareness of itself, so that we come out of it even more positively from a point of view of how we feel about our town, how we feel about our location. We also want to help foster a diverse population and business mix. The other thing I saw Friday night, I saw diversity of people. I thought that was the most important thing to see, and I'd like to see that all over town. I'd like to see it all over Vermont. I think we can do a better job of that. We want to be able to help increase patronage, the people who come into businesses to buy, to do business with our businesses, and people who participate in events and participate in the life of our community. I'd like to encourage street life and street activity. Bruce, you mentioned the other night, why can't we have that once a week? It can be with all these dynamic businesses that are there, the new businesses coming in, businesses reopening. this should be possible. It's not it doesn't need a miracle. And we'd like to be part of spurring continued growth in occupancy of businesses and downtown residences. It'd be nice to have a lot of people living downtown the way downtown should be. How that looked for us, if we could find a way, and we're going to be striving this year, to become a kind of a model for how to do business and how to attract businesses to the area and how to help businesses succeed, then I think I'd be happy with what we do. And I think that's got to be a big part of the next couple of years. I think for us, the beauty of the pandemic, as it is for a lot of people, is it also gave us a little time to take a step back now and say, all right, what are we going to do that needs to be different for the next 5 years, the next 6 years? What are we going to do that needs to be innovative? What do we need to do that needs to be absolutely dependable and repetitive, able to be repeated well in case after case? That's where I'm kind of focusing. Shannon, that last slide. So for us, we see this as the time to embrace growth opportunities. We want to use 2021 to reassess our role, to reassess our structure, to understand how we need to meet the needs of new businesses, new business paradigms, and a new marketplace. As we say, we need to do the usual, the things that BBC always does, but we need to do the unusual, the uncustomary, and that is to help attract entrepreneurs, those willing to start something new and do something different and innovative. For me, it's attract the risk takers, attract the people who are willing to take a risk, knowing that risk is risk. It pays off if you do it right, and you have the risk that it won't pay off. You have to be able to accept the risk in order to have a reward. We'd like to find ways to help make our community more diverse, both among downtown residents and downtown business owners. And we want to come back on this last point to you maybe in a month or two, talking about expanding our concept of downtown. I'll just say briefly that people who move from different areas of the country to Bennington, let's say if they move from Boston, from Brooklyn, from Philadelphia, from New Jersey, our sense of downtown, and I speak of this as a Brooklynite who came here through many trips to many other places, my conception of downtown was very different than the concept of downtown that I think people have here. For me, for example, downtown always began as soon as we passed the Blue Bend and headed in. Downtown always began for me, coming from the east, when we were at Peppermills, which doesn't exist anymore, but which is Miller's Toll. We'd be at Peppermills and we'd walk further downtown. That was downtown to us, and we live in North Bennington. So our concept of it was a bit bigger, a bit different. It wasn't so much ruled by some sort of districting or regulation or tax district. So we'll want to come back, maybe, what do you think, Mike, 2 months maybe?
Yeah, looks like.
About 2 months, and talk about downtown in a slightly different way, if you give us the permission to do that. Some of the things that we want to do to prepare for our own future have to do with looking at 22, 23, and beyond. We need to do some multi-year planning as an organization. We need to do multi-year budgeting as an organization. We need to develop an idea that goes beyond year to year to year so that we can plan better, be able to adjust along the way better, financially and in terms of the activities that we undertake, the activities that we support, and figure out how we can build additional alliances with additional alliance partners. So we're thinking maybe for the moment less doing and more supporting, and increasing the BBC membership by adding new members, adding new organizations to us. Don't know how that's going to look. We're just in future state right now, and you don't figure future state out until you've spent more time on it than we do. But that's where we are. That's where we think we have to be. I think we need to we want to, and I'll stop and I'll entertain your question, Bruce, but I think we need to break a bit with the past and do some different things. Yes, sir.
Yes, just one suggestion in terms of, and a question really that was posed when I was going through this before we got here. I too was interested in that best practices manual and wondering about its availability to those who are in the planning stages of entrepreneurship, particularly BIPOC communities. I really think that and how available is that? Is it something that I can just say, you need to get in touch with the BBC and that'll be available, and we'll also open some other doors? Is that the best process, it seems to be? Because I'm thinking one of the ways to increase diversity in the downtown area, in the business district, whatever we want to call that, is to have greater diversity of ownership of businesses.
I'm absolutely in agreement with you, and that's something we'll absolutely need to work on that. The town needs to work on that too.
Yep.
Yeah, and
we'll just have to work closer on that.
That packet is something that goes to a new business, so it's not intended. So it's not exactly intended for your purpose.
Okay, I'm just trying to remember where the best resources are.
Right, so this is way past the SBDC stage. So this packet is really for a business that is considering opening in the downtown.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it could be helpful in terms of the broader picture, but
Right.
it's really not an entrepreneurship
Okay,
setup.
that's helpful.
Does that
But
make sense?
I'm just suggesting the more we can be helpful at the front end, particularly for new entrepreneurs, particularly for BIPOC entrepreneurs, the better the
Not
better
only
the
helpful,
outcome.
but absolutely welcoming,
Yeah,
encouraging. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry.
I also am remembering Curtis Reed mentioning that Bennington and other towns, probably in Vermont as well, and all over the country, there's marketing that can be done to welcome people of color. And he was very specific of places where we could market our town. There's apparently BIPOC ski clubs, that's one example. So that's just something to throw in the mix. That's something that we, the whole town, should be aware of and could really do a better job marketing to that population.
I grew up in Brooklyn, one of the most diverse places I've ever really lived in. And it's not that diverse anymore. Right now it's basically millennials making a lot of money, paying $5,000 a month for something my parents would have rented years ago for, I don't know, $200 a month. But I think of Astoria, Queens as one of the most diverse places you can find on the planet, outside of Toronto, for example. And we're never going to be them, but we sure want to take a swing at bringing people here, giving them a reason to live here, to grow a business, to work here, and looking a little differently in a couple of years.
yep.
Sorry, I'll get off my
So questions about
soapbox.
work plan. I'm thinking, are you going to talk with us a little bit about the budget? Because the budget is actually what we have to accept, right?
Yeah.
Not the work plans? Is this accurate?
That is correct.
Yeah, I'd ask you to direct your questions on budget to Mike and on the work plans to Susan and Eric and Mike as well.
Well, do you want us to ask questions, or do you have any prepared statement that you want to make about the budget?
Please come with your questions.
Okay.
Jeannie,
Yeah.
it's not only a question, but it's somewhat of a statement and a slight criticism. My wife and I, and my wife through her own business, have long been members of the BBC. I dare say we've not been asked to renew our membership in more than 2 years.
So noted.
Thank you.
So noted. Thank you. That's a great critique. So noted. I'm going to note it right now. I'd like to see you get an ask in about 2 weeks.
Your invoice is in the mail.
Yes. Yeah.
You'll all get them.
And that is fine. That is fine.
Gary, you're not saying darn, are you? Okay. All right, so anything else on, so a question, so what we have is the 21-22 budget, and we don't have, I think what you say in here is that there's just a very modest increase. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about about that increase and where it fits in the budget?
Sure. Well, we, first of all, felt that it was reasonable, particularly in light of some of the self-assessment that we want to do, that Michael has talked about in terms of the way the BBC accomplishes its mission and its goals. And so it seemed that within that context, it was reasonable to level fund for 21-22. But we are asking for a small 3% cost of living increase for our salary and hourly personnel.
Other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Just a comment. For me, anyway, it's particularly unhelpful to have a month by month by month by month system. I know that's helpful for you as a board members, but for me, it would be much more helpful to have year-to-year comparisons and projections out.
Yep.
When you're going to do a report another time, that would be much more, it helps me figure out where the increases are, and I don't care what the, I mean, I do care, but it's just the month to month doesn't make any sense for us.
Well, this is a new format for you. In the past, you have done year to year, so, yeah, so.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
experiment.
I could not remember, but I know that this one isn't helpful, or as helpful, let's put it that way.
And this has been an odd year.
Yep,
To say the least.
so noted.
All right. Other questions on the budget? All right, so basically this is level funded. Go ahead.
I'm not sure what my question would refer to. It does refer to the budget. The vision that you have and the work you want to accomplish, do you feel like, and I don't mean this disparagingly at all, the bench is deep enough, or would you love to be able to hire a consultant at some point, or do you feel like the expertise is there to accomplish what you want to accomplish?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
Yes, no, seriously, part of, if you will, the rethinking, restructuring is both to add to the board. As I said, I used to be younger. I want to see some people on the board that are maybe 30, 40 years younger than I am. And I want to see people on the board that are starting their businesses out, and I want to see them coming from a variety of backgrounds and ethnicities, number one. Number two, that always brings with it more expertise, because there's nothing worse than going stale, doing the same thing over and over again for a bunch of years. And number three, we are pretty good and experienced at what we do. I mean, I've been doing this kind of consulting work myself for about 30 years, but I will not loan myself out to the BBC because I don't want them to repeat me. I want some new people coming in. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
We would also very much like some additional monies to hire more staff, obviously.
But if you find that you do need, so you're not anticipating needing consulting funds, I mean, you feel like you can move money around in the budget that you have and accomplish what you need to this year?
For the moment.
Is that where you're going?
For the moment.
That's what
For
you're
the
asking?
moment.
Yeah,
For
I
the-
always feel like what do you wish you could put in your budget that you can't?
Yeah.
We ask that question often, and I'm always very interested in the answers that we get.
I think first thing, if I could speak candidly, higher compensation for an executive director and the ability to hire full-time assistant, perhaps assistant executive director, certainly a full-time executive assistant to the director. I don't know of any other organization around the region that sort of works on the shoestring staff that we have. And that takes a lot of John's energy, takes a lot of Diane's energy. I'd like to see some more in there.
All right, so, and so this will be the year that you'll sort of figure out what that's.
This will be the year of figuring the future. And,
Okay.
you know, we'll put together a 3 to 5 year plan. I don't think you want to plan for more than that. You just want to execute on that. I hope I'm making sense to all of you.
So I'm just gonna, Sarah, do you have any questions for them before we vote? Okay, how about you, Jim? No? Tom, Gary?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a question. Do you see an impact from the button block being redeveloped? Will that impact in terms of available funds, tax rate, additional taxes?
I don't know. I would assume there's got to be something. There's got to be a positive impact, yes. I don't know exactly what it would be, how much it would be, or how much of what it would be available to us.
Or when exactly it will happen,
Yeah.
it'll be available.
Okay, anything else on this? That was quite enlightening. This is great, thank you. This was really thorough.
Did we meet your
all
expectations?
I think you met my expectations. How about others? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, so I do want to say, Tom is the liaison to the Bennington Free Library, I am the liaison to the BBC,
Yes.
which means I go to the meetings, but I'm not on the board, I don't vote, but I do attend. So I feel comfortable voting on this budget, because there's no conflict of interest. I had no input in developing this budget. So I guess I am ready to ask for a motion to approve the BBC's budget for the 2021-2022 year.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Gary seconded. Great. So all in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please say no. Any abstentions? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and you're all delightful.
Okay.
Shannon, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Shannon. All right, community policing update is next on the agenda. This will be fairly short. We don't have any policies for review this meeting, so hopefully we will at the next meeting. And I do want to remind everyone that the NACOL presentation, National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, will be this Thursday, July 15th at 6 p.m. in this room. It will be a presentation by Brian Corr, who is the past president of NACOL and staff member. He also serves as the chair of the review board, the director of the review board for the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that will be from 6 to 7:30. There will be time for people's questions and for the presentation. So I think that's everything on community policing update. All right.
You mentioned that it's open to the public.
Yes, it is open to the public, and Cat TV is filming it, so you can watch it live or you can watch it later.
And do you want to just mention what the purpose of it is?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think I know what the purpose of it is. It's to basically educate the community on what having a citizen review board could look like. There's different models that he's going to talk about. Basically, just educate everyone as the first step of seating the task force, which will continue to study what a citizen review board could look like. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you. That's great. All right, and that brings us to the manager's report.
Yes, thank you. Two action items tonight. One is a street naming. Normally, when subdivisions or developments are presented to the Planning Commission, they are provided with street names that the board, the Planning Commission board, adopts or accepts. In the case of the Northeastern Baptist College's development off of Convent Avenue, when they presented this 9-unit housing development, they had not named the drive. So they are here tonight through me requesting that you name the drive Ed Wright Way. He's a major supporter for the organization, and that's what they would like to have.
Yeah.
We will provide the sign at their expense, and then the signs thereafter, because it's a private drive, would be at their cost.
So move.
Excellent. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so all in favor of naming this private drive Ed Wright Way, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? All right, wonderful, thank you.
The second item is perhaps a little more complex, but it's what we talked about a couple of meetings ago, and really came to light when we were doing our budgets back in January. We had budgeted a substantial amount of money for operating supplies, assuming that those monies would be used by the Y as part of its normal operating expense beyond its memorandum of understanding, which basically covers their salaries of the individuals that work for the Y in Bennington. They've not used that money substantially. A small amount has gone to scholarships for some of the summer camps. A small amount of operating supplies provide some of the tools and materials they need for summer camps, and other things have been supplied. So we have in this year's budget a total, I believe it is $147,000, and you'll see that in the fifth line down when we talk about before, $147,360. That will be reduced to $10,000, which should be able to cover expenses that the Y might have. We're talking, I had a request today for a replacement of their AED facility or materials as part of their training exercises. So we'll be talking with Kayla about that as a possibility. What I am recommending here, and this does not change the bottom line of the general fund budget, that's the important part. When the voters vote on the budget, they vote on a several $million-dollar budget. How it's allocated among the departments is really your decision when we present it to you. And here, in order to track these expenses fairly and therefore have it make sense to someone viewing the budget, I'm recommending that we realign some of these funds. In the first instance, we'd increase the salaries budget and the benefits budgets of the Community Development Department to account for the community coordinator position, That would be salaries and benefits totaling approximately $84,000. And we are using that as a range. It's not broken out very specifically with life and disability and health care and all of that. We really don't know what those totals will be until we actually offer the position to someone. The second issue would be to increase the administrative services account for contracted services, that's the 560 account, by $26,000 to actually have sufficient funds, or perhaps more than sufficient funds, depending on the bids we see, to upgrade our websites. We would then like to take another $15,000, which we are doing this year through this summer season, where we are maintaining the fields at SVC with a part-time person. We would put $15,000 into our buildings and grounds budget to cover that particular expense. And as I said, the last one we would reduce the total expenditure budgeted in the recreation budget by $137,360 to provide $10,000 for operating supplies, and then we would allocate monies to the scholarship programs. We've been paying $7,000 to $9,000 a year, depending on the participation, to the Y out of the operating supplies budget because we hadn't made a line item request for particular scholarships, and that's what the 440 account will allow us to do. So that's what I'm recommending. I need your approval in order to make this happen. We are going to be interviewing at least 2 candidates beginning early in August because of vacations and availability for the community coordinator or communications coordinator position. So we hope to have that individual on board before the fall, and all of this would then be put in place, and you would be able to then track it much more accurately throughout the season.
Yeah, this seems like a really, this is very helpful because now we know exactly where all the funds will be. Do I have a motion to accept the realignment?
I've got a question.
Oh, okay, well, can I have a second and then we'll have discussion? Does that work? Yeah. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead.
So we're decreasing the operating supplies by 137 and some change?
Yes.
Okay. And if the rec center does need more than $10,000 in operating supplies, what should they do?
They should still come to us. We have not been spending any dollars over the last 2 fiscal years until just at the end of this particular fiscal year, they came to us for some materials, for some basketballs and other balls for some of the games that they were playing. So they've not been using those funds. Now that they know they're there, we may see a greater demand for usage, but this is an estimate of what we think it will take us to get through a fiscal year. If it doesn't work out, what we normally do in the budget is we still allocate the funds to that line. It shows an over expense, but it gives us a direction for the following year.
And then that would mean that when we do budgeting in early January and the rec center comes in, then that would be a time for us to have a conversation about whether the 10,000 in the supply line
Is sufficient.
is sufficient, and if we should bump that to 15,000, or if we should bump it down to 5,000. I mean, so this is so this doesn't say this is all that's in the pot to spend. This is the estimate. So when we see the budget at the end of the year, we see that in some lines we've overspent, and in some lines we've underspent. What we just can't do is, we just have to have a balanced budget in the end.
Yeah,
Right.
that's our goal, always to bring it in,
I like it.
in the black preferably, not just balanced.
In fact, yes, yes. Other questions, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm just hesitant to cut the operating supplies budget that much, but I'm also willing to vote yes on this. I just want the rec center to know that they can come to you with requests.
And they do,
For
that
additional-
conversation has been had.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
they
just want
do.
them to know that
Yeah.
they can come to you for additional supplies on top of this.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions? All right, are we ready to vote then? All right, so we're voting on the motion to accept the realignment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And just one other point that the public may not be aware of that I do want to reach out to the public somewhat. I include in my informational portion here the fact that we have been doing an analysis of use of the town offices during normal business hours, which has been 8 to 5. We have found pretty often that there are very few people that we are doing business with between 4:30 and 5 p.m. That basically the building is simply staffed, and we might get 1 or 2 phone calls, but not many people come in, except at water and sewer payment times and at the end of tax period times. And we always stay open late for those instances anyway. So I am going to continue to monitor this throughout the month of July, but We have had people that have showed up at the town offices hoping to drop off a tax payment or a sewer payment before they go to work, and the building is closed. So they're leaving it in the mailbox on the side door, which is obviously not the most advisable thing to do. So we've had some requests for that, and I also indicate that a lot of contractors want to be on job sites by 8 o'clock. They don't want to be coming down to the town offices to talk about permits and other things. So if we are available, and I can tell you that our buildings staff, the building inspection staff, they are in the office at 7 o'clock in the morning. But the building remains locked because they're in the west wing, the far west wing, and not necessarily near the front door where people most access. So we're going to continue to monitor this, but I wanted to give you a heads up and the community a heads up that we may be looking to change the hours to a 7:30 to 4:30 operating timeframe. Many of us would probably still be there after 4:30. I know Michelle is there often until 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, depending on the
But you would lock the
workload.
doors, right?
The front door would be locked, but if somebody did show up and knocked on the door, we can hear them and we can respond.
It's fascinating, yeah.
We'll let you know what we continue to find.
It's
It'll
great
probably
that
be better.
it's actually great that you're looking at this.
Sure.
It's wonderful. All right, can you tell us anything about the website upgrade process? Like
Unfortunately.
timeline? I mean, is there a timeline for it?
No, we
Okay,
really
not yet.
haven't.
Okay.
I haven't really had a chance to sit down with Shannon, with Dan. I want to include the chief and Cassie in that because they both have websites that they operate. And so we really haven't had a chance to get together. And of course, this time of year, vacations, as you can see, my assistant manager's on vacation tonight. It just doesn't permit us easily to get together. But I suspect we'll have a time frame and some sort of an idea of where we're heading no later than the first meeting in August.
Okay, all right, that's great. Well, so hopefully you can give us an update.
Yes.
Yeah, next meeting or following one. And the rec center has a new
They're
front
open.
door, right?
Yes, the front door is open. We've discovered that since it's open, it does create some difficulty for the people, our rec center employees who are covering and manning that desk, with having visibility into the pool area and towards the locker rooms, which is what, by coming in the side door, that was really pretty obvious for people. So we're going to be using or utilizing a camera system that'll be set up, and there'll be monitors at that desk so that person who was at the desk can actually beat people into the appropriate locker room, can actually see what's going on in the pool.
Great.
And I mean, when you hear about the number of programs that are ongoing now with the Y at Ben High Complex, thanks to the rain, but also at Willow Park and at the rec center, they're going great guns, and that individual that's at that desk really does need to have access visibly to those areas.
Yeah, okay, so that's a blip that needs to be figured out. But I know you've been there, I've been there, I think a lot of people on the board have been there, and it's beautiful. The new entrance is beautiful, it goes into that nice community
Nice
room
space.
with the garage doors, and it's very welcoming. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I was there today, and not only is it beautiful, but there were kids everywhere. The parking lot was almost full, and there had been some sort of big meeting in the community space. So, I mean, the place was just buzzing. It was really cool.
That's why we want to call it a community center, right?
Yeah.
What we want.
Yeah.
So great. All right. So anything else? Is that good for the manager's report? Yeah, question.
Do
Go
the
ahead.
update on the communications position?
On the what?
Yes, I indicated early on that we have two individuals that we're going to be interviewing probably the first part of August. We received 5 applications. 2 are particularly well qualified, we think. And so we'll start with that, and if we are unsuccessful in identifying a candidate, then we'll re-advertise.
Thank you.
Super. All right, moving on to upcoming agendas. So what I have is hopefully a first reading on one or both policies, right?
Yep.
We have a discussion coming up on the process for evaluating projects for infrastructure and other funds.
Right.
So that's, Dan is gonna lead us in that discussion.
For ARPA funds.
For ARPA and just sort of, just sort of a process
Okay.
for looking at all the funding that
Okay.
might be out there. And then we have senior programming, which we all need to remember is 50 plus. So it's basically adult programming, and that will be a joint presentation by the senior center and also the YMCA. And I was just looking at the materials we got today. So both the senior center materials we got and the Y schedule that's in the back of the staff newsletter, those are both probably good pieces for us to hold on to, you know, in terms of that conversation next week. And then, Jim, I'm thinking maybe what we want to do is set up, again, a three-person committee to continue to look at the structure of our meetings, which we've been sort of taking apart and putting back together as we go. So I would happily join you with that. Is there someone else that would be interested in looking at other parts of how we structure our meeting, including the pledge?
Well, I'd just like to note, just for the hell of it, you are beating the clock almost by 20 minutes.
I know.
And I watch it.
I know, I'm not even saying it out loud,
Yeah.
because it's gonna jinx it. We have an executive session.
We're not done yet.
Yeah, okay, all right. All right, so, okay, anything else we need to put on the agenda for next time? All right, so let's do other business, and then let's go into executive session, okay? So, other business. Sarah, anything?
Nothing for me.
Jean?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of the comments that were made, mostly because of the BBC presentation, is just the energy in town is just really off the charts. It's just so wonderful. We went to the play yesterday afternoon. It was fantastic. It was very well attended for a Sunday matinee. They're talking about doing so many creative things and collaborating with local businesses. It's just so wonderful. And the other thing I've noticed, and I'm curious if anyone else has noticed this, I'm seeing more than ever children outside playing like hide and seek and tag. I've seen little boys and little girls pushing a doll stroller and playing dolls. These are things I have not seen in a very long time, but I'm seeing them this year, and I don't know if I'm just paying closer attention or if something has shifted in a good way. So I'm enjoying being a resident of Bennington, for sure.
Lovely. How about you, Tom? You good? Okay, I just want to, so besides this Thursday, which we have a presentation here by NACOL, and then we have Midnight Madness or Moonlight Madness right after it, right? We also on, help me here, Gary, Wednesday, July 21st, here, there will be, over Zoom, there will be a 6 p.m. Energizer public meeting. So I think we should just all make sure we keep it on a calendar. And remember, it's on Zoom, which I seem to be having a lot of trouble remembering.
I know.
But, okay, so, and in no other business, then we have need for an executive session for the purpose of discussing a legal matter. We do plan to take action when we come out of executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
Motion
Sarah.
to go in executive session.
Great.
Second.
All right. Okay. Let's do that.
I'm going to vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, no abstentions. you. So we've come out of executive session, and we would like to take an action. I need a motion to authorize the town manager to accept the settlement with Purdue on behalf of the town. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Who's seconding?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, so any discussion before we vote? Yes, Bruce.
I'm going to, it's not really discussion, but I will make a statement. I'm going to vote in favor of this, not because I like it, not because I agree with it, but because, in essence, where we are right now, it doesn't really matter, and I'm hoping Stuart will explain to the public a little bit more about this, but what it really means is this is a settlement that has already essentially been agreed to by the majority of a large number of the litigants. We in Bennington are, as I have already stated, a flea on the backside of an elephant, and it really will not matter. But let me just say for the record, I think the deal stinks because I believe that the Sackler family is not paying what they should for the deeds that they have done. That is my opinion. It is not, that is my opinion, and that's how I'm stating it. And even though that's all the case, I will still vote for the motion.
I've got a question for Bruce.
Okay.
When you say it doesn't matter to the Sacklers, the amount of this lawsuit, or to Purdue.
It doesn't matter to the
Farmer.
settlement either.
I don't think it matters. Our vote doesn't matter to the Sacklers, doesn't matter to Purdue. It doesn't matter to the settlement. The bankruptcy judge isn't going to care, I don't think. However, what will come of this is some money to mitigate the harm locally.
May I ask?
That's where Stu can.
Yeah, Stu, can you give just a brief thumbnail of what we're talking about?
Yes. This is a settlement in the Purdue bankruptcy case. It is a settlement of a bankruptcy case, but it also does end certain litigation, which has been brought against the Sackler family. This settlement, wherein 3,000 litigants have been negotiating through the federal courts in Ohio, where all of the cases were consolidated, brings to the table approximately $6 billion in settlement. 4.5 billion of those dollars come from the Sackler family, and those monies will be distributed among all the litigants. In our case, which is a locality or a local government, we'll be in a pool with all of the states, counties, and other governmental entities, and we will share in the proceeds of $4.25 billion, something $4.3 billion in this settlement. To give you an example of what that means, Vermont's share of the total public distribution is just under 3%, 0.3%. So Vermont will receive between 11.7 and 14.7 million, and a lot of this depends on the value of the companies and the entities that are left behind. The Purdue company itself will continue to operate, but under new ownership with government oversight, and they will be principally manufacturing drugs that counteract the impact and the effects of opioids, which is probably the one good thing that comes out of this entire settlement. Bennington will receive funds because we are an individual litigant, along with the towns of Brattleboro, town of Sharon, and St. Albans also brought an action on its own, not as part of our group. So there will be 4 people or 4 entities in Vermont that will receive some form of settlement. We will also have an opportunity to have input on the Vermont settlement. The AG's office will be reaching out to work with the various localities to determine how that should be distributed, and ultimately, I believe legislative approval will be required by the state legislature ultimately. So we are here tonight. The majority of the litigants have already agreed to this particular settlement. As most of you might have noticed in the paper, the AG, State of Vermont, is opposed to the settlement for a variety of reasons. But whether you're opposed or whether you're in favor, because the majority of the litigants have agreed, this settlement will go forward. We will receive whatever funds come our way, and we are in a group that is for entities with less than 400,000 population. So there are a number of us, I couldn't tell you how many, that will share in whatever funds this second group gets. And so we don't know what our amount will be, but we do know that we must make a decision and inform our attorneys prior to July 14th. Our attorneys have recommended that we accept the settlement.
Thank you. Other people want to make any comment on this? I think we're all feeling like this is something we are not happy about. We do know that it is going to be settled with no matter how we vote. And our attorneys have recommended that the town vote yes. So with that then, I'm going to call the vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something quick.
Oh, go right ahead.
Sorry, I was prepared to make a no vote, however, that would not affect anything, and Bennington can still benefit from the money that we will receive.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, so with that, let's see. All those who are voting in favor of authorizing the town manager to accept the settlement, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Sarah. All right, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Cat TV. Thank you, viewing public.